flames burning under stadium lights. We roar out loud, we don't back down. Panther hearts beat in this town. Break it down now, play by play. We live for the fight every game day. From Bryce Young to the roaring crew, black, silver, blue, we're coming through. They've got the place to keep us alive. Bryce slings it deep like a panther dive. We break it down, stats and scores. Post-game heat that leaves you wanting more. Live after the whistle blows. Feel the energy, it grows. Break it down now, play by play. We live for the fight every game day. From Bryce Young to the roaring crew, black, silver, blue, we're coming through.
Welcome, C3 Panther faithful, to another special edition of the C3 Panthers podcast. Tonight, we have a very special guest and a great interview in store for you tonight. He is the sports director for WCNC. Some would say that he is the pride of New England. I am being joined by Nick Carboni. Nick, thank you so much, and welcome to the C3 Panthers podcast. How are you, man?
What an intro, Cody. I'm great. How are you? And I mean, it ain't Bill Belichick right now, so maybe it is me.
It's certainly not Bill Belichick. I don't know if Bill Belichick is the pride of North Carolina or New England, but that's a different podcast and a different time. Like I said, thank you so much for your time tonight. I wanted to ask you some prevalent questions surrounding this Carolina Panthers team right now. There's so much excitement going into this 2025 season, and it's on a number of different fronts, but this offense is going to look very different this year as opposed to what it did last year. I wanted to pick your brain a little bit on the trade of Adam Thielen and how all of that went down. Jalen Coker goes on IR literally right after. My question to you is, if Jalen Coker goes on IR a little earlier than what he originally did, should the Carolina Panthers still send Adam Thielen back up to Minnesota?
I don't think they could have in good conscience, but part of one of the biggest layers to that trade, as you know, Cody, was that Adam Thielen was, I would stop short of demanding, but absolutely asking for a trade back to Minnesota. But I think that is where Dan Morgan would have had to draw the line and say, listen, if I do that, you know, I'm not keeping the Panthers' best interests in mind, which I do think he was in his mind doing before the Coker injury, betting on the young talent in the receiver room that included Coker until Thursday, and being comfortable enough to send Thielen to Minnesota, where he clearly wanted to go. Overall, like when I heard, and really, you know, you swap out all the picks and they say it's fourth round value, I would have loved them to get a third round pick for Adam Thielen, as productive as he has been. But the more you hear Dan Morgan talk about it, the more you understand, well, the Thielens just wanted to go home. And standing in Adam Thielen's way was probably not going to lead to a very good dynamic in that receiver room. But no, I to answer your question, Cody, I do not think he would have done that if Jalen Coker had already gone on IR.
You know, that this also sort of inexorably leads into Hunter Renfrow. And by the way, what a blessing and surprise for the Carolina Panthers that Hunter Renfrow essentially was only willing to play for the Carolina Panthers this season. It was either the Panthers or retirement. You know, there were a few obstacles, namely his daughter watching Bluey and exiting out of all of Dan Morgan's calls. Tell me a little bit about that Hunter Renfrow dynamic. Originally, Dave Canales said that he had some peaks and valleys in his performance, but now he is the starting slot receiver for the Carolina Panthers. Tell me a little bit about that timeline of events and how fortunate the Panthers are to be able to lean on a former Pro Bowler like Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah, I think what we know now is that when the Panthers were going to release Hunter Renfrow, and that he wasn't going to make the initial 53-man roster, they told him, look, things are probably going to change. And that's why he missed all those calls the very next morning, because that is when Adam Thielen was traded. I also think what we know now is, and we surmised it then, is that the Panthers felt pretty safe that Hunter Renfrow was not going to go to another team when they released him. Clearly, he wasn't interested in doing that because he likes the Carolinas. His other job is here. He is a partner in his uncle's company down in South Carolina. His wife is here. She's about to have their third child. So I think the Panthers, in the back of their minds, knew that Hunter Renfrow was safe from going to any of the other 31 teams. A guy like Bryson Tremaine may not have been if they had stuck him on the practice squad. So then, prior to the Coker injury, I think it was a matter of Carolina just trying to convince Hunter Renfrow to start the season on the practice squad until he got to a point physically where Dave Canales trusted it. Now he has to trust it. And apparently he does because it is him. You know, Renfrow is starting in the slot on Sunday. I mean, they have David Moore still. So it is a guy that they feel really good about helping them this season. I think they were trying to get away with bringing him along a little bit, you know, more slowly if all those things worked out, but clearly plans change.
Yeah, one of the biggest plans that have seemed to have changed is that normally your left tackle doesn't have an appendectomy the week before your season opener. Could you tell me a little bit more about that with Ikem Ekwonu, what his status is going into this opener against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and how confident the Panthers are in Brady Christensen, who has been pretty much a Swiss Army knife for the Carolina Panthers for the past 4 years now, how comfortable they are with Brady being able to fill into that spot should Icky not be able to roll on Sunday.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, it's been Josh Nijman taking all the first team reps at left tackle. Brady Christensen, I mean, he's listed as second team right tackle, but he, as you mentioned, is the guy that can slide each and everywhere. So I think he is the backup for both sides. But it does appear that it would be Josh Nijman on Sunday if Ikem Ekwonu cannot go. So today at practice and Monday at practice, Icky was doing conditioning off to the side. He is not taking part in any football stuff yet. So given that he had an emergency appendectomy 10 days ago, and it'll be 2 weeks by the time they hit the field Sunday, and that he has not practiced here through Wednesday, you'd probably lean towards him not playing, but Dave Canales has not ruled it out yet. In fact, he said what would give him confidence in Icky playing Sunday is a great practice, even in individual work on Friday. Basically, you know, there's a scar that's got to heal. So now how is your body and that scar healing with all those movements that a left tackle has to make? So I think it's still possible Icky takes the field Sunday, but I also wouldn't bet on it because I think they're going to be cautious with a guy they, want to keep around, and we'll see how long they want to keep him around. But it's week one, so we'll see. The further this thing goes into the week and he's not participating in any football stuff, that makes me think he's not going to play. But it's only Wednesday right now as we're taping this, and Thursday could be a different story, and as Canales left open, Friday could be a different story.
Yeah, such a weird story how he was just essentially feeling bad one night and then said, I need to get checked out, and then has to get an appendectomy. I don't know if I've ever heard of anything like that.
Yeah, it's funny. My mom had that happen to her, and she described it very similarly. Like, you stop feeling good, or you start feeling poorly, and then you keep feeling poorly, and then all of a sudden it's extremely painful in your side. And so I think at that point, Icky's dad, who I met, is a doctor. He's a physician. So I think that probably helped spur him on to go to the hospital. He kind of knew probably what it might be. It was funny seeing some fans on Twitter's reaction when they found out he had an appendectomy, like that. Some people thought it was like an elective surgery. It is certainly not. So it's not something you could even like detect. It just happens.
Yeah. I mean, that's it was definitely surprising. I think another surprising injury that, maybe it wasn't quite as serious as an appendectomy, but it was the collapsed lung of Nick Scorton. And, I want to ask you about him and how ready he will be going into this game against the Jaguars, but also Princely McMillan as well. I mean, these were the second and third round picks for the Carolina Panthers this year. But the Panthers also have DJ Wonnum returning at edge. They brought in Patrick Jones the third. So my question is, how much should Panther fans expect to see the young guns at the start of the season, both Princely and Nick Scorton? And how much a part of the game plan are they to Ejiro Rivero?
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how it plays out Sunday, but I think they have to be, counted on to try and contribute right away for a team that is really anemic in the pass rush the last couple of seasons. Their leading sack guy last year is gone, and Jadeveon Clowney. I like what Pat Jones brings. I like what DJ Wanham brought last year when he started to get healthy again. But you look at these two guys, first team all SEC edge rushers picked on day 2 and 3. You don't pick those guys without having a plan for them to try and get them out there right away. And I also think they each bring different things from one another, and they each bring different things into that room. But yeah, Nick Scorton, he went through a scary medical and uncommon medical episode 2 this summer, week 2 of preseason down in Houston after that practice, where he comes up with a collapsed lung. And we talked to him today, I believe for the first time since that happened. It was for me anyway. And he was feeling great. He was like, I'm good. Like he's ready to get out there. He is fully participating in practice. That is a great sign. And I think when you see, and when we saw collapsed lung, it's terrifying from the outside. His word for it was, it pissed me off because I think he didn't want to be slowed down at all from the progress that he'd been making in camp. So I think both guys will be solid. I think both have the potential to be double-digit sack players at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's this year, but listen, if they each grab a handful and help this team get after the quarterback a little more, that is why you drafted him. And that's good for a couple of rookies. So, that I like what they both have because I think the skill sets that they each have differ from one another and everybody else in the room. So I think they'll be out there quite a bit.
What was more surprising, Nick Scorton being a full participant in today's practices, or you coming away with the quote, just regular tabbies, as he's essentially taking in cats?
He's a cat guy.
Yeah, I am too. I love cats. I'm a cat guy myself. I'm a weirdo like that, but Maine Coon cats. He seems like a great locker room character that a lot of people have already started to really kind of coalesce around.
Yeah, nice kid, young guy. He's not even 21 yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we went straight to it. We walked with him straight to his locker, like, have a few minutes and, let's talk. And then I had to ask him about the cat because he got this Maine Coon cat, which I'm not a cat guy, but apparently they're like 20 pounds.
Yeah.
That was in the summer. So I asked him how the cat was. And he said, I just picked up 2 more. I'm a dog guy, but I love anybody who gets animals from a shelter. He got 2 cats from a shelter. So he's got the Maine Coon cat, just a couple of tabbies, as he told me. And then he's got some sort of dog. I want to say it's a dachshund. So he's got a busy little house, man. But he's like you're dead on about his personality, and just from a media perspective, that's when we kind of start rooting for guys because I'm like, well, if he starts to like pop a little bit, he's going to be even more fun to talk to. But he's been great with the media too, and Princely as well in much different ways. Princely's like, you can see the chip on his shoulder from a mile away.
Yeah. He's had a few streams that he does on Twitch where he sort of kind of revealed his personality.
If you tweet about him, he'll find it too.
Yeah, no, dude, he's awesome online. Yeah, he believes that he can beat any left tackle in the league, which is what you want in a defender. Like,
hey, off the first step, he may be able to. He's got fast. He's got great get off, and that's going back to what I said about each guy. Like that's what I think is exciting about the two guys, that they bring something different than they have. And
right.
You got to put guys like that out there.
For sure. He seems like he has a great speed rush. I think maybe some of the questions around him is, can he convert speed to power? Yeah. Which I do think the defensive line coaches are going to be great in continuing to develop him. But I wanted to stay on that defensive line because one of the biggest news stories in all of the NFL was the Dallas Cowboys trading Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers for 2 first-round picks and defensive tackle Kenny Clark. We have recently learned that Dan Morgan and the Panthers, they were in on talks for Micah Parsons. However, trading defensive tackle Derrick Brown was a bridge too far. Can you give me some insights into why that was, and just how important Derrick Brown is to their defensive game plan as a whole in 2025?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of layers to it because Kenny Clark's a really good player too, and the Packers were comfortable with dealing him. I think that he's a little older than Derrick Brown. I think the Packers are further along in their quest for a Lombardi trophy than the Panthers are. And that's, I think that's just a matter of fact. So I think trading for a player like Micah Parsons, giving up a young, talented player like Derrick Brown, one who is absolutely, you talk about your core, he is in the center of that core for this team and what they're trying to do and what they believe in here. So that's really hard to part with. Also, the $47 million a year you're parting with as well.
Yeah.
I just don't think, like, maybe they could make that work, but I don't think they feel like they're there yet. Like, the Packers they could be a Micah Parsons away from hoisting the Lombardi trophy. They've been building towards that for longer than this iteration of the Panthers. So I think it's layered. I think it's Derrick Brown, the player. I think it's Derrick Brown, the person. And where are we as a franchise I know Panthers fans and Hornets fans never like hearing this because y'all have to hear it every 5 years, it seems. This is year 2 of their rebuild. Dan Morgan and Dave Canales, right?
Yeah.
So that's where they're and that's how you get to be a team that doesn't rebuild. But unfortunately, there's been so many resets that it is year 2. So I just think with all those factors, I was interested. I didn't have any sourcing on that. I think that came from Jeremy Fowler, which I take as gold, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think the player, the person, and then the salary and all of that fitting where you are in your track just probably wasn't going to do it.
I mean, even if you take Derrick Brown out of the equation, it's still hard to imagine that this organization at this point in time would be willing to part ways with 2 first-round picks. It just doesn't necessarily seem like that's in the cards for the team at this current moment, especially with Ejiro Evero. I mean, his defense last year gave up the most points in NFL history. Like the Panthers need to stop the run. That's sort of been their Achilles heel, for the past couple of years. I don't know if this defense is fully ready to be everything that they want to be just after this past draft and offseason.
Yeah, and I think Dan Morgan has probably got those future first-round picks all but earmarked for defense. He spent the last 2 picks on a wide receiver, and this is Dan Morgan we're talking about.
Right.
And this defense we're talking about. That he's trying to build that defense next. That is the next thing on his priority list, I think. So, yeah, a very expensive move, as you said, excluding the player you'd have to give up and factoring that into being a year or 2 away from being like, oh yeah, okay, we're there.
Yeah. So I want to move to stay on the defensive side of the ball rather and talk about this roster. You still have some interesting free agents that are out there floating around, like Asante Samuel Jr. at cornerback. You have Isaiah Simmons, who was once a highly touted first-round pick potential type of guy at linebacker. And both the defensive backfield and the linebacker room are sort of thin for the Carolina Panthers. Did you see them going out and making another free agent signing before the start of the season, or did you feel that they're pretty much comfortable with the way this roster has shaped out thus far?
No and no. I don't think they're going to make a move heading into this week, but I don't know how, maybe we'll see on Sunday that I'm wrong. I'm not comfortable with the linebacking core. I think it's thin, and I think now you've got a couple of guys.
I think a lot of Panther fans would agree with you in that notion.
Yeah, I think it's thin, first of all. And then you've got a couple of guys that were pressed into service last year because of injuries, and now Roseboom, at least, is being pressed into service this year because of injuries. I think that Wallace, they didn't bring Roseboom in here to start, and now he is.
Yeah.
I think that Wallace is a really good future piece if he's allowed to kind of be the athletic type linebacker that he is and not kind of get stuck in the box and have to wear the green dot, which it doesn't sound like he will. It sounds like Roseboom will. Right. But, I just think that is an absolute point of weakness. Safety, cornerback-wise, if we just go level by level, like cornerback-wise, I like their 2 starters. Obviously, I really like J.C. Horn, and I like a lot of what Mike Jackson did last year. Like, it isn't flashy. It's not, nationally recognized, but I thought he came in here, about this time last year. It was, the last week of August, and did a really nice job all season and helped them win some of their games. And then beyond that, Corey Thornton is a guy that fits that same mold. Maybe he doesn't have the talent, but he's already showing the know-how, and he's got some attributes they like. Caleb Evans, it really seems like Thornton's hopped him at this point. You go to safety, like, do I love that Nick Scott is starting? No. Do I think he'll start the whole season? No. So I think they have guys they really like, Lathan Ransom, Damani Richardson, that have already, like, Richardson's proven he can play. He did it last year. They know he can play. They drafted Ransom because they think he's going to be really good, and I think he will be too. He's still got some stuff to learn, so he's not a liability when he's out there, and that's why I think Nick Scott's out there now, because at least he kind of is picking up what Ivero wants him to do. So I'm more worried about linebacker than anything else. You go bounce back to the front. I mean, they made the improvements. Now it's just got to play out. Like Derrick Brown, let's count him as a free agent signing. You just brought in your Pro Bowl. Bobby Brown has strengths where they have weaknesses, and that's stopping the run. Treshaun Wharton's an interesting piece. We'll see how he goes from playing with the number 1 defensive tackle in the league to playing with a top 10 defensive tackle. So that's not a huge drop off and should help him. So, the interior of the line should be probably the most improved portion of the defense.
Yeah, I hope so. I really do think that Josie Jewell surprise sort of, retirement really did throw them through more of a loop than anyone ever expected. It really, as you mentioned, Roseboom wasn't expected to be a starter this year, but he's essentially being thrust into that role. Lathan Ransom, you also mentioned, is somebody that a lot of Panther fans are really excited about. And Dave Canales kind of all but admitted that they rolled with Nick Scott just because of familiarity, that they've been with him, they know him a lot. How short of a leash do you feel Nick Scott has before Lathan Ransom ultimately does jump into that role?
I honestly think it'd be a couple of weeks. Like, you drafted this guy for a reason. He's got very good attributes on the field. He's a smart kid. He's still trying to pick things up, obviously, but I think people underestimate how football coaches value a player that does what they that knows what they're trying to do, and also a player that they've just had experience with. Even though you drafted a guy because you want that experience with him, like there's a hesitancy in a lot of cases to go with a younger player just because you're a little worried about, case in point, the 3rd preseason game against Pittsburgh, Ransom misses an easy tackle. He also grabs an interception. So I think that the more they can trust him in practice, where we don't see it, the quicker he's going to be out there. But I don't think it'll be very long. I'd be surprised because, Nick Scott is kind of who he is at this point.
Yeah.
Ransom is a guy they think can be really good.
Yeah, Lathan Ransom, a part of a championship-winning Ohio State Buckeyes team. I mean, he is a downhill thumper. He seems like he embodies every sort of trait that Dan Morgan values in a football player, and he was certainly impressive during the preseason. Nick, I wanted to jump back to the offensive side of the football. Obviously, this is a huge year for Bryce Young. And you already mentioned that the Panthers have spent the last 2 first-round picks at wide receiver. Kind of a 2-part question here is, how much do you think they are going to lean on first-year wide receiver Tetairoa McMillan to be the number 1 wide receiver this year? And what exactly do you think this organization is expecting from Bryce Young in year 3? Year 3 is often the year that a lot of GMs look at where a quarterback is supposed to be putting it all together. You look at a Josh Allen, a Justin Herbert, even a Jalen Hurts. What do you think the organization is expecting from those 2 players this year, Tetairoa McMillan and Bryce Young, in year 3?
Yeah, I'll start with Tetairoa. I think they want him to be the number 1 receiver on this team for a decade plus. That's why they drafted him where they did, when they clearly needed a defensive player. He's got the tools to be that. He's developing that chemistry with Bryce Young still. It's at first it's like, we're catching up, and then boom, and then they get a play, and then not the next one. Like they got to start really putting it together more consistently, and I think they will, because I think you got 2 smart football players out there at the same time, and McMillan's got a lot of skill. I think they will still try to move the ball around, and Bryce Young is kind of brought in to be that point guard type quarterback.
Sure.
But I think they want McMillan to be that number one X receiver on the outside. I think they want Leggett to catch the ball over the middle and just turn on the jets. We don't have video of it. We couldn't shoot that portion of FanFest. But if anybody was at FanFest and saw what Leggett did over the middle, and Dave Canales called it bad angles by the defense because he also coaches the guys on defense. They're all his players, but Leggett made him take those bad angles.
Yeah.
I think that's the perfect role for him. Not necessarily like shifty slot guy, but somebody that lines up there and is able to catch the balls over the middle. And then you've got, Coker when he comes back and Renfrow and Moore and what they do in the slot.
Yeah.
So I absolutely think that he's going to be, now without Thielen, somebody that Bryce Young is going to look a lot to in big situations, especially when he develops more chemistry and trust, third downs, red zone, tight spots, because, man, he can make a bad ball into a good ball real quick. Yeah. Not just with his frame, but the way he snatches the ball out of the air is different. Like, you look for things that are different. That guy picks the ball out of the air like, you snatch an apple off a tree.
Yes.
And he had, I think, a 5% drop percentage in college. I mean, very, very low. He takes pride in being quarterback friendly. He can make spectacular catches, but he told us he always aims to catch it with two hands, but sometimes he sneaks the one-handers in there. So I think he'll be good. And I think now, especially without Thielen, like Bryce is going to be processing third downs. Who am I going to? And it's hard not to go to a guy with that frame and that catch radius. For Bryce Young, you're exactly right. Third year is becoming huge for quarterbacks, franchise quarterbacks. It's after this season, they're going to look at your fifth-year option. Or if you have an incredible season, they could give you that long-term extension and be like, okay, we don't have to look for a quarterback anymore. We got that. So I think the Panthers are still very much in wait-and-see mode with Bryce. Wait and see if he starts this season like he finished the last one. Wait and see if he can carry that through 17 games this year and take that next step, which I think he's fully capable of doing. And Dave Canales, when asked about his relationship with Bryce, had an interesting comment today. He said that he wanted to prove to Bryce that he could put a good offense around him.
Yeah.
So they've got the entire offensive line back. We'll see about Icky in week 1. They brought a second 1,000-yard back to pair with their returning 1,000-yard back. So you got Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle, which they don't get a lot of pub in training camp. And listen, I'm included in that. Can't tell you how many times we talked about the receiver room because it was kind of the soap, not a soap opera, but it was kind of the reality show of the team. But those running backs could be extremely valuable for Bryce Young. I think JT Sanders really looked good last year, and I think he's now really a professional this year. He lost the weight. He took care of himself. He stayed disciplined, and I think that's only going to help him catch passes. So I think it's a big year for Bryce. I think things are set up. It was funny. I was listening to somebody talk about Trevor Lawrence and say, like, the excuses have been exhausted. Like, we all know Bryce Young had a rotten experience his first year in the NFL. Not his fault. We all know that last year he got off to a really terrible start and things weren't perfect around him at the beginning. Well, now you've at least got the same play caller, head coach that you had last year. First time in Bryce Young's 3 professional seasons, you can say that. Yes. You've got skill players around him that, yes, they need to take the next step in their own careers, but have every tool to do so. You've got the run game, the O-line, like it. He has every chance to prove himself this year in that offense.
And especially with Tetairoa too. I mean, this is a player that he advocated for during the draft process. Like, he was big on telling Dan Morgan and them, get that guy. He is what this offense is missing. And it also appears, when you look at Dave Canales in his past, he's worked with DK Metcalf. He's worked with Mike Evans.
Yeah.
Tetairoa seems like he perfectly fits that mold of that big body jump ball wide receiver that's going to feast on those third downs with play action pass, which is also coincidentally enough for Bryce thrives. It just seems as though that comment that you said from Canales is really proven to be true. They are trying to put Bryce in the best possible situation that he's ever been around as a pro football player.
Yeah, and Dave Canales at one point did compare Tetairoa's skill set more to Drake London, which I'd be excited about as well. I think London's a pretty darn good player. You know, at the end of last year, Dave Canales, when Bryce started playing better, Dave started to open up more about Bryce. For a while there, everybody was pretty closed off about everything that was going on. But Dave told us at the end of last season, I'm starting to open the playbook up a little more. Dave told us this preseason, there's more responsibilities. Bryce is now, like, at first for Bryce and a lot of rookie quarterbacks that have to start week one, like, just the operation is tough. Just getting the play and then relaying it with confidence and authority and then getting everybody up and looking at the defense and then making adjustments. Like, that's the mental side of it's hard enough. And Bryce Young is a very smart guy. So now in year 3, and then, like I said, the second year with Canales and his offense and everything, he's now getting more responsibility, not only in the meeting rooms, but at the line of scrimmage. And I asked Austin Corbett about that today, the team's center. And he's like, honestly, that's where Bryce really shined this preseason, is communicating with me as a center, communicating with the line in making protection adjustments, telling the receivers where they need to be and what they need to be doing. So that is something that also needed to be cleaned up besides the turnovers. And I think now with confidence and comfortability in the offense and, you know, the confidence that came from how he played last season, that command of that offense is going to take a jump.
Yeah, I mean, it really does seem as though this is the year where that continuity should help him make that jump that so many Panther fans are looking for. I don't know how much longer Panther fans can go through the quarterback carousel of just not knowing who we have under center and going through, you know, first hurt Cam Newton, then, you know, Teddy Bridgewater, and we've been through so much. If Bryce can really take that step forward this year, even if the defense has questions, like if this offense can take a major jump, it feels as though they will be able to know as an organization that we know what we have for the future and what we want to build around.
Yeah, I think the franchise feels that, you know, hesitancy to jump back on that carousel too. They know how hard it is to find a quote unquote franchise quarterback. Not all franchise quarterbacks are cut from the same cloth. I've been watching that Chiefs docuseries on ESPN and was reminded in one episode that Patrick Mahomes threw 50 touchdown passes his second season in the league, which is absurd.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anybody expects Bryce Young to do that realistically in season 3. So I think that, you know, he could earn himself at least the 5th-year option or even an extension this year by showing, like, I'm continuing this growth. I belong in this league as a starting quarterback, and you don't have to worry about this position anymore. Right. Now you can move on to building that defense out. Now you can move on to putting even more pieces around me on offense so we can go win more games and get to the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, he is the sports director for WCNC. Nick, thank you so much for your time tonight. Your answers have been very illuminating. Hope to get you back maybe sometime during the season and talk about the Panthers later on and, you know, maybe what they're doing around midseason. Tell all the fans where they can find you and how they can support you in your work.
Oh, appreciate that, Cody. Yeah, I'm just on Twitter at Nick Carboni, WCNC, and on WCNC Charlotte, the NBC here in Charlotte, every night at 6 and 11. So I appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you, man. C3 Legion, we love you. Keep pounding.
Football is back, and Underdog is the place to play daily fantasy football sports. You can play anything, play football, hockey, all of that, but the NFL is starting on Thursday, Friday, and then the Panthers hit on Sunday. Playing Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, receiving yards, interceptions. Get your picks right, and you could win up to 5,000 times your cash that you play. Look, I'm going to pull up Underdog right now and see what we could do here. If we just look at the opening night of football, you can get Saquon Barkley as an entry. Will he score a touchdown? He's at 0.5. All you got to do is pick higher or lower. The more players you pair with this, the more money you can make. Do you want Dak Prescott for 246.5 passing yards. My initial instinct is lower, but they have no running game there. And then you get Jalen Hurts, CeeDee Lamb. Will CeeDee Lamb have targets in this game? No running game. I like higher at 3.5 receptions. If he can get 4 catches in the first half, you pair together those numbers, you're making big time money on your investment. Up to 2.7 or more. That's a flex pick. Look at this right now. The standard, if we get all 3 of those, higher or lower, you put in $10, you get over 5 times your money. What you do is you download the app today. That's the Underdog app. But most importantly for us, if you're a fan of this podcast, you sign up with our promo code of C3P. That's C3P to score $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5. That's promo code C3P. You must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid Maryland, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That's 467-369. Help us out. Make some money. It's football, baby.